Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod review. And today we have a mod for one of my favorite weapons of all time, and that's going to be the Escape from Boston Springfield M14 by Salient Phantom. This is going to add the battle rifle known as the M14 into Fallout 4, and this is by far one of my favorite weapon platforms. Now, I know my audience does usually prefer the more lore-friendly type of weapons, and while the M14 is itself a lore-friendly weapon, this is definitely going to be a far more tactical, modern version of it, but still, this is a very quality mod, and you don't have to throw on all of the crazy tactical parts. Quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, an M14 is still an M14, whether it's a retro Vietnam-era M14 with wood furniture, or it's a tactical modern EBR variant. Either way, I still love this platform, and this is a very excellent mod. It uses custom animations, has beautiful models, and altogether just has a ton of customization for the M14, so you can really kit it out to do a lot of stuff. Now, being that this is an Escape from Boston mod, it does again have an emphasis on those modern tactical parts, and does feature a lot of attachments that you would see in Escape from Tarkov, including a handful of chassis upgrades, which we have never seen in a Fallout mod, at least as far as I've seen. Now, while I personally don't tend to use these chassis upgrades even in Escape from Tarkov, despite being statistically great, I just don't particularly love the aesthetic of them, but they are included in this mod in case you want to throw them on. So for those of you who are tactical modern mod lovers, this is definitely a great one to throw into your load order. Let's go ahead and talk about the details of this mod. It does spawn on the leveled list specifically for vendors after level 25, so once you hit level 25 you'll be able to purchase one of these. It does not note any leveled list integration for enemies, so it looks like you will have to buy one. Alternatively, it is added to the chemistry station, so you can craft it in the new M14 category. This weapon is of course highly customizable at the weapons workbench with a handful of aesthetic changes as well as a bunch of scopes and, like I said, those different chassis variants. But at its core, this weapon will pretty much be a long-range DMR variant. You can throw on some close-range optics or iron sights, though it is always going to be semi-automatic and shooting out 308. It does have a flat damage increase based on a tier upgrade system rather than a receiver system. We'll get into that a little bit more in the weapons workbench. Now, let's go ahead and check this thing out in-game to get a look at its stats and also those custom animations. For starters, let's get into the stats. Here we have a basic version of the Springfield Armory M14 with none of the damage upgrades. This thing has a base damage of a whopping 75 using 308 caliber rounds. It has a fire rate of 63 and semi-automatic, a range of 283, an accuracy of 76, a weight of 14.1 pounds, and a value of 260 caps, meaning this thing packs quite a punch. With that range and that damage, this thing is very, very powerful. Luckily, you can't get it until after level 25, and you will have to spend your hard-earned caps on it, so that is at least a little bit to help balance this thing out. Now then, let's talk animations. This does, of course, feature custom animations and even custom sounds, and I think they all look and sound amazing. Go ahead and let the firing and reloading play for you now, and then we'll check out some foregrip animations as well. And like I said, this does have the option for foregrip animations, so if you throw on a foregrip, you will be able to use those animations, and they look really, really nice. And believe it or not, this thing even has fully custom third-person animations as well, which is a pretty nice touch. Now then, when it comes to attachments, here is a basic version of the M14 EBR, but there are a couple of variants you can choose. Like I said, there are different chassis upgrades that make this weapon look totally different. Now, sadly, for those of you who are retro fans, there is no wood furniture in this. This is not a classic M14. This is definitely a much more modern version, but there is still a lot you can do with this weapon. Starting off, we do have that chassis upgrade. You have the standard Sage International upgrade that we're used to, and there's also the Black Feather RS, which is a new setup to me. I haven't seen this one before, but I actually do kind of like it. I don't prefer how far back the rail extends, but it's still pretty nice. And then we have the Troy Industries SASS. Now this one I am familiar with, and to me it's a bit blocky for this gun. The M14 is already pretty big, so adding this kind of a chassis to it makes it huge and heavy, but some people do like this, and it will definitely improve your recoil, as this is a whole lot of weight added to that weapon. Now then, for barrels, we have the 410mm or the 558mm if you're looking for something a bit longer for sniping. For magazines, we have the standard M1A 20-round mag, a thermaled M1A mag, and an M14 30-round magazine for an extended mag. We then have some rail options. Now, these will be the same for every rail, so I'll only go through it once. We have the EOTech PEQ15, the HoloSun LS321G, the L3AN PEC box, the Steiner D-Bal, the Streamlight TLR7, the Surefire X200, the Ultrafire WF501, and the Zenitco Purst 3. The same is true for the top rail. You'll get the same set of lasers and lights. We also get to change out the pistol grip on this mod. We have the standard Colt A2 in black and flat dark earth, the Hogue Overmold in black, flat dark earth, and olive drab, the Magpul MIAD in black and flat dark earth, the Magpul MOE in black and flat dark earth, the standard Sage International M14, which will change if you change the material on it, the TD Concept Black, and the TD Concept in red. I'm not familiar with these pistol grips. They are definitely interesting. For muzzles, we have a handful of options with the option for no muzzle brake, the AAC Blackout, the Fortis 762, the KAC 762, the KVP 308 Compensator, the Springfield M14 Flash Hider if you want something classic, the Surefire Warcomp 308, the Daniel Defense Wave, the Daniel Defense Wave Suppressor, and the SIG SR-D7 suppressor, and finally the Silencer Co. Hybrid 46, which only comes in flat dark earth. We also do get to change the sight position if you are using the standard chassis. It will be the same if you throw on a chassis upgrade, it will always be in the same spot, but with the standard setup, you get to choose if you want the typical sight setup over on the front of the weapon, or if you want a scope mount to bring it closer to the rear. So pretty interesting that you do get to choose there. When it comes to materials, we can choose between black and flat dark earth. Now, interestingly enough, the standard flat dark earth chassis comes with a big silver section, which is pretty interesting. That's a quite an interesting color combination there. Not my preference, but if it's yours, it's definitely there as an option. We have a right rail section for more of those lasers and lights, same for the bottom rail. And then we get to the sights, where we have a handful of optic options. You have, of course, the option to throw on your standard iron sights, the Aimpoint Pro Red Dot, the Aimpoint T2 with a short, tall, or unity mount, the Axion Cobra reflex sight, the Elcan Spectre in black or flat dark earth, the EOTech 552 with a magnifier, the EOTech EXP S3 in black and flat dark earth, the EOTech Voodoo, which is a nice scope available in both standard or see-through scopes. We have the EOTech XP-S2 in black and flat dark earth, the Leupold 3.5 to 10 Mark IV, again with standard or see-through scopes, the Leupold Hammer Scope, the Monstrum Prism, the Night Force ATAC, again with see-through scopes or not, the OKP-7 Reflex Sight, the SIG Bravo 4, the Trigagon MRO, Trigagon RMR, the Trigagon TA11D, the Vomzy PLAD Scope, the Valday PS320, again with standard or see-through scopes, the Vortex Razor, and the Zenitco PK06 Reflex Sight. For stocks, we have a handful of different options. Now, what's interesting about these is they are all on the standard sort of Colt buffer tube. There isn't actually a standard Sage International stock for the M14. Definitely an interesting choice by the mod author, but if you're fine with the buffer tube type stocks, then those are there for you. We do have some foregrip options, with the option, of course, for no foregrip, the BCM Mod 3, the Fortis Shift, the Hera Arms CQR, the KAC, the Magpul AFG in black and flat dark earth, as well as olive drab and even stealth gray, the Magpul RVG in black and flat dark earth, the Tango Down again in black and flat dark earth, and then finally the Viking Tactics UVG. And then finally we have the actual receivers from tier 1 up to tier 6. Not your standard set of receivers where you have all of the different modifications like higher fire rate or armor piercing. This is just a flat damage increase all the way up to tier 6, which will give you a maximum damage of 137 without perks and a minimum damage of 75 without perks. So you can get this thing to some pretty insane damages with the Rifleman perk. Now then, it is of course time to do our damage test. Now typically we will just test the weapon with the standard version and a fully upgraded version, but I do have a fear of this thing being pretty overpowered, especially considering that you can craft it at the chemistry station, so I do want to try out a couple of additional tests. So we will be doing the standard version of the weapon with no attachments and no perks, then we'll be doing the fully upgraded version with the highest damage from the receivers. Then we'll be doing that same high damage receiver with a fully upgraded character with maximum rifleman perk. And then if we take out that really standard Deathclaw too fast, I want to test it out on a Deathclaw Matriarch, which is a much higher level enemy, to see how this thing actually fares in the late game, and if you'll be able to take down late game enemies with ease. So let's go ahead and get started with the standard Deathclaw using 308 in semi-automatic, aiming for his weak point. Let's see how the standard M14 does. And we put down that Deathclaw in 8 shots. Now do keep in mind that we are using 308, so that sounds about right for, say, a hunting rifle, but we can sling these bullets out a whole lot faster. Let's see how we do with a fully upgraded version. Again, with the semi-automatic 308, aiming for the weak point, same as before, but again, with more damage this time. And that puts down a Deathclaw in only 4 shots, which means if we get the fully upgraded rifleman perk, this Deathclaw might go down in 2, but there's only one way to find out. And lo and behold, that Deathclaw almost went down in 1 shot. It did take us another one to pick up that last little bit of HP. Now again, that is a standard Deathclaw. We do have a fully upgraded weapon and maxed out perks, so this is a late game character against an early game Deathclaw. Let's see how it does against a late game Deathclaw and see if it's still overpowered. And the answer is a definitive yes. Taking down a Deathclaw Matriarch in only 3 shots is a little bit absurd, so this thing may need to get tuned down a little bit. Luckily, that is something that is pretty easy to do in Xedit. It wouldn't be too hard just to give this thing the same base damage as the hunting rifle, just to be a little bit more fair. But yeah, guys, that is the Escape from Boston M14 mod. Definitely a cool one with a lot of customization. Again, if you're a fan of tactical modern load orders, this is definitely going to be up your alley. But if you prefer the retro parts, I may stick with something a little bit more like the Springfield M1A mod, which does allow for some of that more retro furniture. Regardless, this is still a pretty nice weapon, a bit powerful. To be fair, this thing does put down Deathclaws with ease and puts down humanoid enemies like it's nothing, but still, it is a lot of fun to use. If you want to try this mod out for yourself, it will be linked down in the description below as always, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating, consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this. A big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting every single video, and a special thank you to Helljumper2077, Indecisive Wolf, Jackie Noid, and Youth RC for joining up with that tier 3 membership. You guys are awesome. If you want to check out the Patreon, it'll be linked down below, though it is completely optional. With that, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace!